In the beginning, this world was self alone, in the shape of a person. He, looking around, saw nothing but his self. He first said, "This is I." Therefore, he became I by name. It's in the first Adhyay, Book 1, fourth Brahmana of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in Indian scriptures. I is the real identity of a man. When you meet a person who say, "I am an actor," or maybe "I am a doctor," "I am depressed," or "I am happy," no matter the profession or the expression, before anything, it is "I am." And that's the identity of the man. So I am before else. The Upanishad is teaching something very timeless. The very first recognition in existence is the awareness of self. Not a role, not a label, or not even an emotion. Just I am. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad illustrate it as a primordial self looking around, seeing nothing else and saying, "This is I." That is the first identity, the original awareness that precedes everything else. You think about it. When you wake up in the morning before thinking about your work, your relationship, or maybe your worries of the days, there is always sense of "I am awake, I am here." And that is the same awareness. This is the essence of human experience. The self as witness, as the very first reality, unconditioned by the circumstances or the labels. All the labels, all the roles, and all the descriptions of the world come after. I am a parent. I am successful. I am anxious. Notice how quickly we attach to these labels. But the Upanishads is pointing to something very much deeper. These are stories, but I am is the foundation. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is said, "Tat tvam asi," thou art that. This means your essential self, the unspoken I am, is the reality before any role or title. Everything flows from this existence or awareness. If you live from that I am first, everything happens. Success, happiness, struggle, these are just simply the expression. It does not define your identity. There's a profound distinction in life between the awakened ones, the enlightened ones, and the one who sleeps through the existence itself, unaware of the truth. The one who is sleeping moves through the life as if it is a dream. They are carried by circumstances and habit and their expectations. They define themselves by titles, roles, and fleeting experiences. I am a student. I am a mother. I am lonely. I am successful. These labels become their reality. They have no sense of self behind this mask, no awareness of the root of being, that is, I am. This is the common human state. It is not wrong actually, it is perfectly alright. It's just simply the unawareness of it. Most people are walking through the fabrics of reality, mistaking the patterns on the surface for the ground beneath itself. They take the else, the roles, the judgments, the stories, for the essence of who they are. Their attention is outward, focused on the appearances of the world, the circumstances of the world, or the outcomes. They do not know yet. This is the very first word they have completely forgotten. That is, I am. The awakened ones, on the other hand, has remembered it. They have returned to the source of identity itself, to the very silent and unshakable awareness that precedes all else. They know, before I am a teacher, before I am anxious, before I am happy or I am sad, there is simply I am. That realization is not an idea. It's a living experience. It's the foundation beneath every thought, every action, and every moment of life. The awakened one sees the truth of self behind the shifting patterns. They move through life gracefully, not defined by the circumstances, not shaken by the opinions or the titles or the roles. The title and the role still exist, but they no longer dictate their own experience of being. They flow, they create, and they act, but always from the root of I am. And then there is the enlightened one, a step beyond. Enlightened one does not merely know the identity of I am, they are fully at home in it. They are so completely returned to the awareness of being that the world moves through them as a reflection of their own presence. They have mastered the art of living without attachment, without seeking validation of identity outside of awareness. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes this state as follows: the one who is established in the self, listen carefully, the one who is established in the self, who sees all beings in the self and the self in all beings, he is the realized one. That is in Gita chapter 6, 29th verse. The one who is established in the self, who sees all being in the self and the self in all beings, he is the realized one. Notice the very subtle difference. The awakened one has recognized that the I am. That's the power of awareness. The enlightened one lives it continuously, effortlessly in every action and stillness. The sleeping self is reactive. They react to the world. But the awakened self is reflective. The enlightened one or the enlightened self is effortless. Most people mistake the fabric, the else, for the reality. They say, I am anxious, I am lonely, I am successful, and they believe it. The awakened one whispers internally, I am, before anything else. The label still exists, yet they no longer hold this particular truth. They are merely the shadows of the surface. The spiritual awakening, therefore, is not an accumulation of the knowledge, what usually people say. I have read this many of scriptures. I've completed this many scriptures. I've been a yogi for 10-15 years. These do not make you any kind of spiritual awakened person. No, not at all. It is not an accumulation of knowledge. No. It is a recognition. It is the remembering of the first word, the eternal declaration that precedes all else. That is I am. The sleeping self chases circumstances, thinking happiness will arrive from outside. That's everyone is doing right now. The awakened one rests in the self first, and in that rest, everything that is meant to flow into the life does so effortlessly and naturally. The awakened one does not seek. They are the soil in which the life grows itself. Most of life is lived in a simple misunderstanding. A very minute, simple misunderstanding. We see forms, we see different names, roles, and circumstances, and we believe they are actually who we are. We associate ourselves with the different role, names, and forms. We think that the suit we wear, the job title we carry, the praise we received, or even the failures we have endured, that defines us. A man wakes up in the morning and says, I am tired. Another one says, I am happy today. The woman greets the world with, I am a mother, I am a teacher. And in that very moment, they believe these are the totality of themselves. But they're not. They are merely just the forms, the shadow that passes across the surface of their own being. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad teaches us something extraordinary. Before the story, before the role, before the label, there is self. There is the first word, the eternal awareness, I am. Everything else, like profession, emotions, status, success, and failure, comes after. Yet most of the humanity ignores this. They have built their entire sense of selves on the basis of these passing forms. The suffering is the natural consequences of it. We cling to the roles because we fear emptiness. If I am not my job, my achievements, my relationships, then what I am? Simply ask, Then what I am? We ask, we hold tightly to the mask, the performances, the expectations, and every time a title is taken away, a dream fails or a relationship's end. The mind screams, I am nothing. But this is the illusion. And this is the illusion of the world. The suffering is born not from the life, but from mistaking the form of reality, mistaking the else for the I of man. The I am of man. We weep over losses, we panic over rejection, we crave approval, all because we think labels are the truth. They are the truth of our lives. No. The awakened mind sees through this. It notices that the body is a form, the mind is a form, the emotions are form. They come, they pass, and they change. But the observer, that the awareness, the I am, never changes. It is constant, untouched and silent. And when we rest in this, the recognition of I am, suffering begins to lose its grip. Consider this fact. The world applauds the wealthy person and they shun the poor. It praises the beautiful ones and mocks the flawed ones. It hails success and condemns failure. If you mistake your form for reality, you will ride this wave forever. Tossed by every judgment of the world, every outcome. But the moment you rest in the I am before else, you stand on a solid ground. The titles, roles and emotions, they no longer masters. They are just the actor on the stage. You are the unchanging audience. That is your I am, the awareness of being. Suffering, is never caused by the circumstances. No, it is caused by the identification with what passes. A job can fail, a relationship can end, youth will fade, wealth will fluctuate, all forms are transient. Only the recognition of original identity, that is your awareness that says I am, it remains. That is the refuge. That is the beginning of the freedom. We have been told, mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation. The mind that is attached to sense objects leads to bondage. The mind that is free from attachment to sense object leads to liberation. On the surface, it seems pretty much simple. It speaks of attachments to objects and maybe detachment from them also. But there is depth that most of the learned Pandit and the gurus and the masters misses here. The Upanishads are not merely a warning against the material positions. No, they are pointing to very much a simple and subtler thing, more pervasive than the form of attachment. The attachment to the else. So what is this else? It is everything we mistake for our own identity. The rules, the labels, the stories we cling to. I am a mother, I am successful, I am unhappy, I am depressed, or also I am not enough. It is not the object themselves that binds us, no. But the way we invest ourselves, of maybe our sense of selves into them. When we say I am anxious because I lack money, or maybe I am depressed because I have lost this relationship, that bondage is not money or the relationship. It is the mind believes that it is the reality of their life. It is dependent upon that. It is dependent upon else. The mind, the Upanishad teaches us, is the architect of both bondage and liberation. The bondage arises not because world exists, but because we mistake its form for the reality itself. We stake our identity upon them. Every title, every label, every emotion becomes a chain when we stay. And this defines me. And this defines you. And this defines us. Whereas if I give you knowledge about liberation, is very simple, yet profoundly difficult to understand, maybe for the untrained mind. It is the recognition that nothing outside the self can dictate your own being. It is the understanding that I am, the awareness of existence before any label, before any story is untouched by circumstances. Detachment does not mean rejecting a life or renouncing a joy. No, it means returning to the root, to the pure awareness that is always present, and letting the forms of life flow through without claiming them as your own identity. And that is liberation. So when you live from this understanding, what we have discussed, the world stops being a prison. The success, the failure, the praises, the blames, the gains and loss, they are no longer the chains that bind you. And you know what? When we mistake our identity as the form, there comes a child, a breeding between your awareness and your understanding of forms as a reality, and that child is trauma. When we speak of the word I am before else, we are pointing out to the very first unshakable identity of every human being, the awareness that exists before labels, roles, emotions, circumstances. This is not a concept. It is the root of every experience, the silent witness in which all of the life unfolds. So in this lecture, I believe somehow I was able to tell you with the best of my ability that the real identity of you, me, of all of us is I am before else. Now, if I can convince you somehow, which I believe no one can convince, because experience is the biggest proof, I would like to share my personal experience of my life, which is my only profound motivation to tell all of the mankind, that the power lies in us, which I have proven in my own experience and the people I have guided unnumbered times. But before that, we must know the power. And the name of the power is I am. Your awareness of being your own consciousness, that is your power. And for this podcast, if I can give you very practical insight, a very practical one, I hope you observe it and you absorb it. Do not derive life from the self. Derive life from I am, which comes before else. Because the else is merely a shadow, a form of this world, and I am is the power, the light, which casts the shadow itself. You know, when I was a kid, it's India. So we have tropical humidity and torturous summer with sun directly above us over the head. I still remember this particular moment from my childhood when I was playing in the scorching sun. This is what we used to do as kids. We had no other options. And some elder, which I sincerely do not remember, said in a very strict and mean tone, and she said, "Do not put your feet on the shadows of other." I was a kid. I didn't know. I was a kid, It's a form of disrespect for me, for a kid. I was scared. The superstition that completely blew my mind. I was just a kid to even understand it. We were catching shadows. We saw someone passing us by, we jumped on their shadows, and after all, I was just a kid and it fascinated me. And then suddenly the next thing I hear, a lady in a very strict tone. "Don't do it. It's a bad luck." But this is how kids are. They still even do it. Although at the moment I was frightened to hear the lady's voice. But as soon as she turned around, we again went to it. So you see, in summer, you can imagine walking outside on a bright day, like I did when I was a kid. Everyone you look, this shadow stretches across the ground, maybe of the trees as well, houses, or maybe people walking by. You might walk on a shadow and feel it beneath your feet. It seems real, it seems solid, but the shadow is only a form created by the sun. Without the light, shadow disappears. And most of our life is lived chasing shadows. This is what we do, trying to control them, fearing them, identifying with them. I am unsuccessful because the opportunity is gone. Or maybe I am incomplete because this relationship has ended. But the mind of wise man sees the truth. The sun is constant. The shadow is just a phenomena, a reflection of the light called I am. And I am is the sun, the sources of all form, the light that casts all the shadow. When you dwell in the awareness, you stop chasing forms, you stop fearing the losses. Do not derive the life from the self. Derive the life from I am, which comes before else. The else is merely a shadow, a fleeting form of this world. Every name, every role you name it, every story you attach to yourself is temporary. They shift, eventually they fade away. They are deceiving in nature. But the I am is the light that casts the shadow. It's the silent, it's unshakable presence from which all else follows. When you rest in this awareness, the world begins to rearrange itself effortlessly and perfectly. Most people live as if the shadows are real. They say, I'm anxious, I'm incomplete, I'm struggling because this relationship or maybe this job or this circumstances has ended or something has happened. And because they mistake the shadow for their own reality, they suffer endlessly. They chase forms, they push against the circumstances and invest their identity into the temporary. Every failure, every disappointment, every fear reinforces this illusion. The else becomes their master. But the creation does not begin with the else. No. The creation begins with I am. This is not a mental exercise. No. It is not a technique. It's the state of your own being, the very first recognition, the primordial awareness that exists before all the labels and the stories. When you dwell in the awareness, first before your name, first before your profession, first before your emotion, life flows to you naturally as sunlight and follows the day. The shadows, the success, love, wealth, fulfillment, they are drawn to you effortlessly. They cannot resist the state from which you radiate that light. And to use this knowledge, if I can tell you very, very, very practical thing from this podcast, which I have proven in my own experience. And this is the main intention of this podcast. And this is the vision of my life. And this is exactly what I live by and what I teach others. So, moving to the very practical side. Whatever you desire, everyone has its own desire. Let it be relationship, let it be a love, maybe spiritual journey, maybe some material wealth, it's perfectly alright. You just begin by returning to the source. Each morning, or whenever your mind grows restless, pause and silently affirm that I am. Feel that presence, that you exist before everything else. No matter who you are, what you are feeling, what your label is, just affirm silently and feel it that I am, and let it settle in. Settle in your body, in your mind, your very presence. Do not add anything yet. Do not attach a role or a goal or a desire. Just simply be. And this is the soil in which all the creation grows. Without this soil, no form can root deeply at all. And in the very next step, when you feel the presence of your own awareness, that is I am, allow your desires to appear as a shadow of this state. See them clearly, but do not confuse them with your reality. The life you want is not something to chase. It is an inevitable reflection of your own state that you occupy. Visualize it. You feel it. Live in that identity that naturally produces the outer conditions in your life. Not the story you lack, no, but the inner fullness of I am. When you occupy this state, that else takes shapes on its own. Every time doubt arises, every time fear or maybe impatience stirs in you, return gently to the source. Remember, else has no power to define you. The circumstances, the other people, the successes, the failures, all these are just forms, all are shadow. The power lies in the awareness behind them. Anchor yourself in I am, your presence of being. Watch the world bends to reflect who you actually are inside. This is not a control, it's alignment. And this is not efforts, it's a natural manifestation. Act from this state, not from striving or anxiety. No, act from the state. What you have desired yourself to be, how you have defined this to yourself. Let your actions be expression of that light, not attempts to manipulate the shadow world. No, you speak, you create, you love, you work from the fulfillness within you. The universe responds to your state first, not to your efforts, not to your struggle. Everything else, every opportunity, every connection, or every success follows naturally, effortlessly, as the reflection of awareness that is, I am. And finally, you just trust the timing of shadows. The forms will appear in your life when the state is fully embraced. You do not need to chase or force or manipulate anything. Just by dwelling in the I am, by letting the else flow as its reflection, you can live from this road. Desires becomes effortless. Creation becomes natural to you. The life you dream is no longer feels distant. It is simply the inevitable outgrowth of your own awareness which you now inhabit. And on this basis of your own awareness, what you are aware of being, you become. This is the subtle law of life, quietly at work. The world responds not to what you chase, not to what you struggle to achieve, but to the state you inhabit. And if your awareness dwells in lack, or maybe in limitation, or in the shadow of else, the world will reflect that back to you. You will chase forms, fight circumstances in your life, and this is endless pursuit what you most of the people seems to miss it. But when your awareness rests in the I am before else, everything shifts. You no longer identified with the passing forms. No, you're no longer identified with the fleeting labels or the outer appearances of the world. Your state of being becomes the magnet itself, and the life you desire emerges as the natural reflection of that state. You do not force it, you do not struggle for it, you simply remain aware of who you are, the unshakable presence, the light before the shadows, and everything else aligns completely naturally and effortlessly. In practice, if I can tell you, this simply means that each moment you ask yourself, what I am aware of being. Am I aware of lack right now? Or maybe anxiety or limitation? Or I am aware of fullness? Or I am is actually the source of my life? Your answer is not theoretical. No, it is lived. It is felt. It shapes your very experience before a single external circumstances changes. So, coming to the end of this podcast, if today, in this particular world, I want to become something which I desire, and it could be anything. I want to be a successful businessman, or maybe a successful actor, or maybe something very intimate. I want to be loved by my loved ones. Anything of this world, you just name it. There is no foundation. Only if you know your own scriptures, which says, what you believe, you become. Then may I say, I would ask myself, if I were you, who am I being? My senses would say the reality of my shadow. I'm not good enough. But if you believe your own scripture, your reality is just the derived shadow, a shadow of your own being, the I am. I would put my faith and I would say, I am a successful person. I am the person who everybody loves. I am the happily married to maybe this person or that person. You say, I am followed by any desire which you desire to be fulfilled in your own life. But for that, you must take your faith from the shadow world and you put that faith in your own real name, that is, I am. And if I do this every day and night, day after day and night after night, somehow I can convince myself that I am which I am. I am successful, I am adored, I am rich. By saying this as if it's the reality of my own life and my identity, it will be so. And no power in the world can stop it from becoming it so. It is my promise. Because there is only one power, that is I am. I can't help but share. When people usually come to me sharing their struggles, their fear of their life, or maybe their frustrations, I tell them gently but firmly, you are not your problems. You're not the circumstances, the debts, the failure, or the limitations you see around you. Those are just shadows, reflection of the world, not your eternal reality. No. I ask them to close their eyes. This is the first step. I ask them to just simply close their eyes and feel it, to return to that unshakable awareness that says, I am before everything else. You feel yourself as already completed, already rich, already abundant, already fulfilled. And I watch as something shifts inside of them. The tension melts, the resistance dissolves. The shadow, begins to rearrange itself naturally in response to the state they occupy. I've seen many people stand before me, talking to me, when they close their eyes and they speak their desire with the feeling that I am wealthy, whatever they desire. If it is wealth, they say, I am wealthy, with a full feeling as it's the eternal reality. I am loved. I am free. And almost immediately in a near future, life begins to respond. The external world in which they live bends to their inner truth, watching this transformation, to be honest. As if it happens in their life. Knowing that it is the awareness of I am that is creating it, it fills me with immense joy. And this is my ultimate moment or ultimate vision and mission of my life. To tell the man that each man that is born on earth is born with the power itself, and that the name of that power is their own awareness, their own name, that is I am. Even if you introduce yourself to me, you say, I am Adam, I am Rahul, I am Kiran, I am Joseph. Even before your name, you say, I am. And that is your real identity. And it's not a magic. It's not a wishful thinking that I'm teaching. It's a very simple, unshakable law of life. What is felt must appear. This is what our scriptures teaches us. So why we do not practice it? Why we do not change the identity? Why we are running behind the shadows and let them decide what is my identity? A man cannot believe that his or her real identity is I am. So if I have a desire, I change my inner conversation with me. If it is the wealth that I am seeking, even if the shadow, the else is showing me something completely different, it's showing me my debt, my money, financial problems, the loans, the finances, I'll just close my eyes and I meditate every morning, maybe night, or maybe when I'm walking down the street into the office, into some party, any place. I just quiet myself down and I simply say, I am that I am. Whichever thing which I desire. If it is money, I am extremely fabulously rich person having a six-figure business. I say it as it is a fact of my life. Even the shadow world is saying the quite opposite. So I close my eyes. That's the art of praying. Close my eyes and I feel as if I speaking these lines. And I affirm and affirm and affirm, not like a parrot, not 10,000 times a day, but with conviction. Even if I say it with one time, I say it with conviction. And I feel it as it's the eternal reality of me. I completely let go of the shadow world and I come back to my own appearances, my own identity, that is I am. So I simply say I am rich. And I let that identity of me, which I have selected for my life, to project into my experience. Maybe 1 week later, 2 weeks later, 3 months later, something happens in my life to give me the proof that what you have assumed yourself to be, what you have made your identity to be, is true. Maybe I'll get a job, a higher paying job. Maybe I'll get a lottery. I am not concerned and I'm not completely not going to judge what is going to happen. I cannot predict it, but it will happen in the most natural way. And that said, that's my motive in life. To awaken all to their own reality, their own identity. In the beginning, this world was self alone, in the shape of a person. He looking around saw nothing but self. He said first, this is I. Therefore, he became I by name. Because I am before else.